Hello, my name is Luis Rosario and welcome to my channel. I've been writing for 9 years and am currently working on a 77-chapter fantasy novel that I intend to self-publish in the near future. For now, I thought I'd introduce you all to some of my work by writing multiple short stories, then recording them as miniature audiobooks for free on this channel. Once my novel is completed and published, I will record and upload the first 10 chapters as a sample. For now, feel free to enjoy my short stories as I release them. Delicacies by Luis Rosario. The earthworm is unaware of all, blissfully methodical in its straightforward life. Blind and practically deaf, it squirms through the soil ceaselessly, pumping its body like a living machine. For hours the routine remains unbroken, and the worm bores through the ground in a repetitive pace. Often it finds itself in old tunnels it dug long ago, or in alternate pathways carved by its kin. All the while the earthworm eats and eats, feasting on the nutrients laced through the dirt. A vibration rips through the worm's square foot of territory, momentarily freezing the sightless creature. Its blissful peace is broken, replaced by a new normal, a new set of instincts that have nothing to do with peace. Another vibration echoes the first, rippling into a dozen, 100, 1,000 rumbles that rock the earthworm's tiny world. Unable to scream, it squirms madly, pushing its front segments upward, mouth open so that it can still consume the food coating the dirt particles. At the same time, its hair-like setae reach for any crevice they can find, working in tandem with the worm's circular muscles to push it upwards. The earthworm cannot explain the abrupt change in its manner. The still, small voice that has always told it to move and eat and breathe is suddenly telling it to flee. The worm does not question it. The earthworm is unaware that deep within its minute brain, its defensive systems have translated the vibrations into a warning, a blaring alarm that warns of a predator, a mole, no doubt, or something like it, some creature craving a fresh meal. But the earthworm is unaware of this, and keeps climbing. Though it has no eyes, it almost hesitates at the feeling of the sun on its light-sensitive receptor cells. Still, the worm's inner voice has not failed it before, so the worm does not question it and continues ever upward. Finally, the last bits of dirt are forced aside, and the worm creeps out onto the grass, squirming out of the soil in the hopes the danger will pass. But the vibrations continue, brutal and harsh. This time, however, the worm's inner voice does not warn it to flee. It is reconsidering, giving the earthworm another message. The worm realizes it is practically swimming in rainwater, the drops falling like bombs all around the little creature's world. The earthworm's fear evaporates. Had it a more complex brain, the earthworm would call this new feeling happiness. As the rain falls, the earthworm swims freely, its inner voice convinced the vibrations were nothing more than this lovely water that floods insects' homes while being a gift for the earthworm. As a storm weeps overhead, the earthworm dances, eventually finding itself in an inch-deep puddle where it can both breathe and revitalize its slick skin. Nearly drunk with comfort, the earthworm forgets the time, languishing in its water. It does not notice the storm has stopped, nor that the sun is eating away its pool until it is too late. The inner voice screams soundlessly again, and the earthworm makes up for its silence by struggling to crawl out its concrete hole, back to the soaked soil. Above, the sun whips it over and over again, baking it as it tries to wriggle away millimeter by millimeter. Just as the worm reaches the wet earth, a robin chances by. The bird hops to and fro on the grass, pruning its feathers after the rain. It pauses, spotting a pink shape half buried in the dirt, slinking in deeper. The battle does not last long, but the earthworm and its setae hooks put up a good fight. The robin is forced to tear the earthworm in two before claiming victory, leaving a quarter of a worm squirming just beneath the grass. The robin is a near-perfect mother. She does not roll her eyes or grow furious when its chicks demand for endless food. The species' parental abilities are so acutely developed, this robin has occasionally found herself feeding the chicks of other birds with no motivation aside from her own inner voice. She drops the yet wriggling worm into the nest, watching as the chicks snap their beaks at it. Only one of the chicks manages to catch the treat, but it remains dissatisfied, crying for more. The robin obeys, fluttering off to find another patch of worm-rich earth. She does not notice the hawk watching from above. The hawk is a powerful creature, bordering on fearless. When he is not standing proud at the top of the food chain, he circles high above what animals remain, glaring at them with a vision as sharp as his black talons. Beneath him, smoldering mountains of rubble crumble in upon themselves, bound to become hills. Strewn among them are bodies, bloated and rotting. Though the sudden influx in food scattered on the ground is tempting, the hawk ignores it, too dignified to eat more carrion. After all, why else did it hatch with this curved beak, these deadly talons, and eyes powerful enough to spot a mouse all the way from the clouds? The hawk turns its beak away from the threaded corpses, preferring fresh meat. It leaves the rot for the crows and the maggots. Perhaps the hawk would be more cautious had it grown a decade ago, before everything changed. Perhaps it would occasionally question its inner voice had it hatched back in the days when the two-legged creatures were populous everywhere, transforming much of the world into a concrete grid. Much has changed since then, and the inner voice is not yet aware of these changes. Perhaps that is why the hawk is caught completely off guard when an arrow hits it in the eye. His name is Max. He thinks he's in his 20s, but he can't remember, and he doesn't care. He hasn't kept a calendar for a long time. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters now but food. Over the years, he has slowly rewritten the definition of food, expanding its borders. When he was a child, food meant breakfast and lunch and dinner, perhaps steak or a burger or pizza or other such near-forgotten fantasies. By the time the explosions forced the skyscrapers to their knees, he began to accept canned goods and, in time, the MREs the military was foolish enough to donate. Now, though, Max has more twisted than broadened the definition of food. Sometimes the food is bread half consumed by mold. He is always careful to pick the fungi off first, but is almost certain he has a few spores swirling around in his system. Other times it varies from dandelions to yet green tomatoes growing wild through the ruins. Both are as close to a salad as he'll ever taste again. He has already eaten his dog. He has not yet resorted to eating people. He hasn't seen any for days. He has trusted far fewer in years. There are only corpses now, but those belong to the flies and the ravens and whatever else can stomach the dead. Still, Max is nearly a skeleton himself, so he is often intrigued when he finds a fresh body, wondering what that person's last meal was before surrendering to the elements. Today, Max's lunch consists of fresh hawk. The real challenge wasn't shooting it with the military-grade crossbow he salvaged from the wreckage around him. The challenge was finding wood dry enough for a fire to cook with. The smell does not go unnoticed. Neither does the firelight, nor the smoke. Max is smart. Brilliant, actually. It is why he has survived for this long. But there will always be someone smarter, and he does not know this. As he wolfs down what tastes a little bit like turkey, he is deaf to the soft crunching of twigs, oblivious to the 3 scopes trained on him. The trio of cannibals will be among the last of humanity to fade. In time, the animals will remember their fear of humans, and they will be harder and harder to hunt. In time, there will be no more weak humans left to fight or kill. Those will be destroyed by their own frailty and consumed by scavenging animals. In time, their steady alliances will fall apart, giving way to betrayal and leaving behind only one victor. In months, the victor runs out of bullets. In years, his knives begin to blunt, and useful tools are harder to come by. By the time he thinks he is 40 or 50, his own fingers begin to look appetizing. One day, after many days of finding no food, He feels a deep exhaustion lulling him, and he sits on the grass as a drizzle begins to pepper the earth. The water is soothing and cool. It does not take long for the man to lie back in the soil, to sleep. No one is near him when death knocks on his door. There is no burial, no gravestone or obituary to honor his strength and survival. When death turns the knob and steps in, it is disguised in 1,000 possibilities. Perhaps it is cancer born of radiation. Perhaps it is simple starvation. Or perhaps the man finds one last bullet among the bones and presses the gun to his head. None of it brings him peace. The flies claim him first. Eggs are laid and eventually hatch. The maggots begin to eat, digesting and processing body tissue into tiny nutrients that are slowly laced through the dirt. The earthworms feast shortly thereafter, oblivious. Alright, so that was Delicacies. I hope y'all enjoyed it, even though it is a little bit depressing, but, sci-fi, apocalypses. I wasn't being that subtle, let's be honest. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that story. If you did and would like to see more of the ones that I have planned to do, feel free to subscribe, and I'll be posting more of these free short stories little by little, while I'm also working on the 77-chapter behemoth of a fantasy horror dark story novel that I'm working on. So yeah, why am I putting myself through that? I don't know. I'm insane. I don't know why. Like, for starting authors, you're supposed to do like 100,000 word books, and I'm doing like 300,000+, and I'm not even sure like how long it's gonna take me to write. But I've been writing very consistently, so hopefully it'll be out within a year, or finished within a year or two. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I'll probably have it done within the year at this pace. But yeah, it's been going well. It's just going to take a little bit of a while. I apologize for the low quality of this. I admit that it is not of the highest quality on YouTube, but I am a college student. I am poor, and at college there's only so many things I can do to reduce background noise and whatnot. I still haven't gotten... I just can't afford all the things that I need and would like to get to, make the audio sound better, so bear with me, please. But yeah, if you would like to hear more of these stories, feel free to subscribe and give me your thoughts in the comments. Goodbye!